Setting boundaries is super important when you're recovering from a burnout or when you're close to having one. I will give you the reasons why it is important and help you set the boundaries so you can combat the burnout even better. So why it's important to set boundaries? So first and foremost, it's about preserving your energy. When you say no to those activities that either drain your battery, takes you a lot of effort, or actually you find frustrating. Because the last thing you need right now is to drain your battery even more. So you need to be clear, and that's the reason why it's important to set boundaries. The second reason why it's important is because it preserves your mental and physical well-being. If you keep pushing yourself beyond your boundaries, that means you're draining the battery even more. And it could be, going to the gym. You really like going to the gym, but you also need some time to rest and recover. And although you might feel the urge, and because on a conscious level it's good for you to actually work out, you should be mindful and just pause. And again, it's important that you recover both mentally and physically, and the only way to do that is by standing still and take the time to rest and recover. Running harder and faster will make the burnout last longer. It's super important to rest and recover. And the third reason why it's important to set boundaries is because it has to do with performance. It's like being an athlete that needs to do a peak performance at, for instance, the Olympics. Those athletes will only be able to perform at peak when they set boundaries and take the rest needed to recover. Rest and recovery is as equally important as training, because if an athlete would train over and over and over without taking the rest and recovery time, they get overtrained, which actually puts them back on the track where they need to be instead of pulling them forward to where they want to be. So even athletes who probably are known for their regime in terms of training and being on track and fixated on a goal, they know recovery and resting is super important to be ready for the next leap in their performance. So why would it not count for us business professionals? The very same applies. So apply the knowledge that you need time to rest and recover in order to do peak performance again. So the 3 reasons why you need to set boundaries: 1, to prevent more drain on your battery; 2nd, to preserve your mental and physical well-being; and 3rdly, to actually boost your performance when it counts. So how do you set those boundaries? Step 1 is you need to be super clear with yourself what you need and when you need it. I used to build a list of the things that were important to me and which I knew I would need for my recovery or to stay healthy. So for instance, there will be the gym, yoga. I like yoga nidra, which is like a sleepy form, a deep rest form of yoga, but that's something that will be on my list. It will be walking outside in the sunlight, soaking up those rays of sun that are so important for my good rest. Another thing would be my meals. It would be doing groceries. It would be listening to music, make drawings, or any other type of activity that will give me either joy or rest. When you know what you need on a daily and a weekly basis, it helps actually to have an overview of all the things that probably over a long period of time you either have been neglecting or that you found it difficult to plan and prioritize. So it doesn't mean that it's all bad or wrong. Now actually this list gives you an overview of what you need and when you need it. So the second step with that list is plan the day and the week and make those items on the calendar, preferably in a reoccurring way. So for instance, going to the gym, I almost go every single morning. So that's in my calendar at 6 or 6:30, and it's a recurrent thing. I don't need to think about it, it's planned. Walking outside, it's something I do after lunch, and I make sure it's planned and scheduled. So I get this rhythm where I don't need to think what I'm going to do next. It's just a routine I build. Same goes for reading, yoga, nidra. They all have their place in the day or the week. Because if you build the day and the week based on the things you need first and foremost, it gives you time to then plan the rest of your activities. Because if you do it the other way around, you have other people rule and manage your agenda, and everything you would need and want will come in after that. So again, start with what you need and want, build a list, make sure your calendar is filled up first and foremost with those elements and those items, which and when you need them for your schedule. Second step is then plan the work accordingly. When you build your list and you planned your calendar, you can't expect people to understand your priorities. You need to communicate, and you don't need to communicate those with an excuse. You can communicate that assertively. What I mean by that is you don't need to apologize for the fact that you're not available, I don't know, at 8:30 in the morning because you went for a run or a walk. You can just carve out that part in your calendar and tell people you're not available. You don't need to explain what you're doing or even why you're doing it. You're preserving yourself, you're looking after yourself. And that should not need any justification. The only justification you need to do for yourself is every time you're taking an activity that's in your calendar and you feel it is conflicting with your work, have the conversation with yourself. Why were you again prioritizing, for instance, a walk outside over taking a meeting? Because you did that to preserve yourself, to stay away or recover from a burnout. If you are inclined to take that meeting and therefore not go for the walk outside, you're draining your battery instead of recharging it. You're pushing yourself away from being in the state where you need to be because you feel probably guilty or inclined to do what needs to be done for the job. But let's face it, if you keep draining your battery, who wins? Not you, not your employer, not the people around you. So every time you're in doubt and you have a difficulty sticking to your calendar and your planned schedule, know it is for the better for you, for your company, and for the people around you. And of course, things will happen during the week or even the day. Although you might have planned perfectly how you want to go about the day with your walks and meditation and all the activities you need, things could come your way which require you to act. Therefore, it's also important to learn to say no. You don't need to be aggressive. You don't need to be super subtle, but a clear no works miracles. So for instance, if a colleague would plan a meeting at an hour that is outside of your office hours, or on a moment you are planning to do something else like a walk outside or going to the gym, politely decline and offer a new alternative in terms of time. There's no need to take that meeting that moment in time. You want to respect their time, but they also need to respect your time. And nobody will know what's going on or understand if you would accept it, but you're not physically there or emotionally there, and you're halfway actually somewhere else mentally. Everybody wins with you being there 100% mentally, physically, and emotionally. and therefore it's better to schedule meetings that work for you. But if, for instance, a colleague would call you and say it's an emergency, we need you. Of course that can happen, but I would always test the severity of the situation. You could ask a question like, but what if I could not make it and we do it an hour later, what will happen? Most of the times, an hour later will be fine, and you win by being assertive and managing your boundaries. Or if they say, well, it really can't wait, then of course I will jump on it and start helping. But at the end of the day, not that many things are so urgent that they need to be happening right here, right now. Sometimes I also apply the question to myself. What will happen if I'm not reacting right now? What if this request would come in the middle of the night and I would be asleep? Would people wake me for that? Or would it be fine the next morning when I wake up, I actually attend to it? Promise you, a lot of times it survives the what will happen if it would happen at the middle of the night question, because the answer is seldom that it's so important and urgent that you need to be woken up for it. At least I've never been woken up in the middle of the night for something that was work related. I found it super hard to protect my boundaries. I have let it be overstepped and trespassed many, many times because I felt I needed to do what was right for the customer, the business, and the team. Unfortunately, I made that mistake too often, which makes me actually end up in those burnout situations because I felt too compelled to contribute. And I had to learn the hard way that the best decision is the decision that serves everybody on the long run. It's like that announcement in the airplane where the stewardess tells you that if the oxygen level drops and the masks come down, you need to put on your own mask first before helping those around you. Why? Because if you don't apply that simple advice, you're gonna be gasping for air, and if you help yourself first and then others, everybody wins. And the same applies for situations like burnout or close to burnout. So put your oxygen mask first before you help others. Look after yourself before helping others. Protect your boundaries first and make sure you recover well. With that, look out for yourself and look out for each other.